Yo guys, I wanted to kind of bring this back and do a little bit of like a creator economics style podcast, similar to what I used to do, but I want to do this in person. We just moved into a new office. I want to talk about things that I've talked about in the past, maybe have creators on. This is my co-host, Kevin. He's actually run Night Socials for the last about year and a half to 2 years. All the memes, all the things that, and also all the stuff that you guys have gotten mad at and complained about. Just blame Kevin. Because it's not me, but he's going to help on this podcast. And we're just going to talk a little bit about like some of the things that I'm reading about that interest me. We'll probably have creators on as we go, but I think more just like a little bit of an interview style. And so without further ado, I think we're going to talk a little bit about an article that I saw a couple days ago that was just YouTube earnings. And so I wanted to just get a little deeper in the weeds of YouTube earnings up 21%, why, how creators should be thinking about this, and then how I'm just like overall bullish on the creator economy and YouTube in general. Does that sound right?
That sounds about right. I think we're going to go over, where we think the money is coming from, how YouTube is they're becoming a dominant force in the living room, and why podcasting is playing a big role in all of this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, actually, that's like a good place to start because I do think that podcasting, which was once audio first, is now video first, and YouTube has been the biggest beneficiary of that. This is probably a hot take, but I honestly think TikTok is probably the second beneficiary, and Spotify maybe is the third, because they paid so much money to get the rights to a lot of these podcasts for all the good clips to just end up on TikTok and YouTube Shorts anyway. And so most of my podcast discoverability, and probably everyone that's watching this podcast, hopefully comes from TikTok or YouTube. And then I usually go to YouTube to watch the podcast. And so I think like, because podcasting is video first now, I think that's for a lot of the reason why we're also seeing just higher viewing. Like we're seeing longer videos, more drawn out content, and podcasting I think is a big part of that, because a lot of the podcasts I watch are an hour, 2 hours long.
I would say too, like you can do things on a visual podcast that you can't do on audio. So I feel like it's something to consider too. You can do something visually, but when you move that to a place like Spotify, right, then it like loses some of its meaning.
Yeah.
So as more people are making like visual podcasts, are you also going to see you're kind of making two separate podcasts at that point? If that makes sense.
Spotify added video, but I have never watched a video podcast on Spotify.
Yeah.
I just don't think that people are ingrained to go to Spotify to watch that. Anyway, let's talk about a few of the other things. I kind of want to jump into earnings a little bit.
Why is revenue up? That's the big question.
Yeah, I think it's a few things. I think YouTube TV and just the subscription aspect of not only YouTube TV, but also NFL Sunday Ticket, I think is a big portion of that. I think that you don't just go to YouTube to now watch YouTube videos from creators. You go to YouTube to watch sports. You go to YouTube to consume podcasts. And now they have YouTube TV. So you consume broadcast on YouTube. I guess it's all the same, right? YouTube TV, YouTube main. I think that's one big reason why revenue is up. I think there is also a lot of advertisers. And one thing I'm seeing on my end is large advertisers are just spending more money on AdSense than they were last year. And it showed in the earnings. I think they said this too. They're up because brand sponsors are spending more money. Now, I think the direct deals with creators is going up. Most creators may watch this and say like, I haven't got brand deals in a long time, blah, blah, blah. But I think most deals like on the direct brand side and the advertiser side for YouTube videos, I think are all going up. More brands are spending. There's more diversity of brand spending. It's not just the same recyclable people. It's the largest brands in the world are now spending on top of YouTube. They know they need to be here. And then I think the third one is it's a little counterintuitive to what YouTube probably wanted to happen, which was solely focused on shorts. They wanted to just pump shorts. But I ultimately think people are watching longer videos. I don't think that has a massive uptick, but I do think people are watching longer videos, myself included, which leads to more ad rates, right? More mid-rolls, higher ad rates. I mean, we have a few creators that have over $20 RPMs. Crazy. Over $20 RPMs. I've never seen that. I had never seen that up until this year. And I'm not just one, not just two. 3. Like we have 3 creators with over $20 RPM. That's what I think is crazy.
We're also seeing like more brands that are advertising, I think, for the first time.
Yeah.
You kind of mentioned that, but I have this like crazy little chart that I pulled of like the top categories of traditional TV advertising, and I want you to kind of like look at them and then give me your thoughts on like where you think it's going on YouTube.
Yeah, and the one like thing I think that, you know, we'll put this up on the screen. The one thing that I think is interesting about this too is it's a lot of advertisers that predominantly would advertise to like my mom and my dad. So it'd be like Fox News, CNN, MSNBC, a little bit of ESPN. It's like traditional cable networks are now spending on YouTube. And for a lot of people, they've seen so many Morgan & Morgan ads. That's one law firm. There's so many law firms that advertise on linear television. So I think for me, it was like, it's nice seeing someone like Morgan & Morgan spend a lot of money on YouTube. I think that just continues. I think that the ROI is maybe a little questionable with where they've spent some of their dollars, but I think they're going to figure out how to make this work. And then some of the other categories here is like, you know, sleep aids, anti-inflammatory, insurance, I think is a big one. We've seen State Farm for the first time ever, at least like in a big way, State Farm spending direct with creators with a lot of stuff that I saw that they did. We're now seeing deals happening with Allstate, Geico. Like I do think insurance is coming in a big way. I also think life insurance is another like interesting one that predominantly would advertise to my mom, my dad. No offense, mom, dad. But I think now like the viewing habits and just the content in general on YouTube, there's content for everyone. It's not just a place where like 7-year-olds go to watch kids videos. Like we started working with a channel called Victory Outdoor Services. This guy has his own construction company. He like lays asphalt. He's like laying asphalt, building sidewalks and all these different kinds of things. Like 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds are not watching those videos. There's another channel that people should check out called Bama Bass. It's like individual that has a lake in their backyard and they fish. It's like there's content for everyone, and every single day there's like a new content genre popping up. And so I think for a lot of these brands that spend a lot of money traditionally, there's now channels that they can actually spend on YouTube.
I would agree. If anyone has been watching TV, which you probably don't, especially if you're here, but it's all like, yeah, it's crazy old stuff, you know, like I think now those channels you're talking about, that's like a perfect example for like Bass Pro Shops to do something, or Carhartt or LL Bean. Like a lot of what you would traditionally have spent on TV, now you're probably looking at these YouTube channels and you're being like, this is definitely for an older audience. Like somebody would probably want to buy some Carhartt from this or something like that.
Yeah, totally agree. Columbia, we're seeing a lot of retail brands come into the fold for the first time. Yeah, there's just like a lot of interesting companies that are spending on YouTube. And I have these conversations every single day. Like I feel like I am the person that's at the forefront of this, of talking to brand agencies and direct to brands every single day. And there's just a plethora of people either trying to figure it out or had already tested it or experimented, and now they're doubling down on YouTube. And I think that just continues to happen.
I want to talk about how should a creator think about this? You know, like if I'm a creator, how do I distill all this info into like, what can I do tomorrow knowing all this?
Yeah, I think you have to think a little bit about viewing habits and how they've changed. So the first thing that I've noticed, and you see it in the data, is that people are watching a lot of content on TVs, right? So connected TV has become, and for creators that haven't went into their back end, you can actually see where your views come from. I would encourage you to all do this and like see connected TVs, like how big is that number gotten and has it grown? And if it's growing, you just need to think about it from the aspect of like, how do I make content that appeals to someone like I'm doing right now, is like sitting on a couch watching content. I'm probably not going to watch a ton of 3 to 4 minute videos. Like when I'm sitting on my couch, I want to consume something a little bit longer in length. I want there to be some storytelling. I think there is a big co-viewing aspect of this where mom and dad are watching it with their children or whatnot, or just like you're watching it with your friends, right? It's like sometimes when you're on your phone, it's like hard to watch a video with your friends.
Yeah.
Right. Also, the other thing that you pointed out that I thought was really interesting is when you're watching a video on a TV, you have this device in your hand. So usually you're doing something else on this device. So I think a lot of times, like when people are watching content on a TV, they're probably half paying attention, half in their phone. Yep. So if you're doing a brand deal, or if you're talking about whatever, Manscaped, probably should think about that. It's like, okay, if 30% of my audience is connected TVs, like they're going to have their phone in their hand. What is that call to action? I think that's like one aspect of it. And I think this honestly continues to increase as sports becomes a bigger aspect of YouTube, which it already has with YouTube TV and Sunday Ticket, I think that continues. But I think if I'm a creator, like that's one thing I'm thinking about in the back of my mind is like, if the majority of my audience is connected TVs, like what does my content need to look like, and how do I appeal to a person that's like sitting in a couch? Also, scrolling on your TV is way different than on your phone. You see so many different thumbnails. When you're on your phone in your homepage, you're scrolling, you're only seeing one thumbnail at a time in your queue, and you're scrolling up. When you're like watching it on a Samsung TV, you see 15 thumbnails, right? And so you have to think a little bit about that. Is like, how do you grab someone's attention on a TV when they're seeing multiple thumbnails and titles at a time? And so like those are the things I think creators should be thinking about too. So I would challenge everyone to like go see like where your audience actually comes from. I would imagine connected TV for everyone is up year over year, and most people probably don't realize that.
I have I actually pulled up for one of your recent videos. If you haven't seen it,
nice. Which one?
We went to Peru.
Oh yeah, which was weird. That one just went off out of nowhere.
Off, but I'm glad it did, because otherwise, we travel a long way for nothing. But it did well. And here, can I read off like your percentages for that video? So your number one is mobile at about half. Number two is actually computer, which is interesting.
That I would have never guessed. What's the percentage?
About a third.
I would have never guessed that.
And then you're around like 20% on TV, but I think that's pretty high.
Yeah.
Like I think if we looked at that like 3 years ago, or well, maybe not in COVID, because I know.
Wait. So, but the video has 465,000 views.
Yeah, it does.
So 20%.
Brag.
Brag. So we're saying almost 100,000. Is that rough math? Under 100, just under 100,000 views are coming from TV.
And you also brought up a good point about like you're watching it with kids. So I kind of thought of too, if you're like kind of like on the fringe of like, is my content like truly made for kids or not? Like if you look and you see like a lot of, your TV viewership, you might reconsider like I don't know how many people are skirting the line of like profanity and stuff like that. Like I would probably take that in consideration, maybe be like, oh yeah, I'm just going to like kind of hold back on some of that stuff.
Yeah. I think most creators have this issue where they think their audience is older than it actually is. When in reality, like most creators have a young audience. And if you have a high TV viewing audience and maybe you make content and you think your audience is 14 years old when it's really 8, most of those kids are probably watching content around their parents, right? And then all of a sudden you make a vulgar joke, or you say something that you shouldn't have, or you have a clip in there that shouldn't be in there. I would say that like you have to think about that. Most parents are probably watching, and they're going to say, okay, we're not watching this creator anymore. So I think it's something good to take into consideration. The other thing too that I wanted to point out that I kind of touched on earlier, I think sports becomes a much bigger aspect of YouTube in general. They had NFL Sunday Ticket. Twitch currently has Thursday night games. Let's see how that changes. Maybe Twitch continues to have Thursday night games. I would imagine that YouTube will continue to bid or try and get more games onto YouTube or YouTube TV. And I think that other sports leagues, whether it's the NHL or the NBA, are going to come over to YouTube. And I like looked at this on Tubular Labs early this week because I wanted to go through all the sports channels, because I'm overall just curious, right? Like, who are the biggest sports channels? It's a wide open playing field. And I'm not saying like you should make content like Jesser, which is like just maybe around the basketball and more like IRL content. I'm saying like content about the NBA, content about the NFL, like things like that. I'm not seeing a lot of. It's honestly dominated by shorts right now. It's hard for me to find a lot of channels like Rebound, which does like, I think they do more of like just like the storytelling around big viral ideas. Like, why is LeBron James the best basketball player in the world? But I think there's a big white space for people to get involved in sports content on YouTube. And like Pat McAfee has done it better than anyone. And he is like running just an absolute masterpiece of a playbook on like, what does this look like? But I think that sports is so wide open on YouTube right now.
I would love to see some WWE on there,
I went deep down this rabbit hole. There's a channel called Maven. Did you ever watch Maven when he was in the WWE?
No.
He used to be a WWE superstar, and his videos are just perfect. It's like the inside secrets of the WWE. Oh, yeah. So if you've ever wondered how someone cuts themselves during a match and they start to bleed, he like tells the story about how you do that. If you ever wonder if they use fake chairs, fake tables, like how that all happens, he explains it in a video. It is like the content that I've always wanted as a WWE fan, and content about WWE and UFC are so underserved. And I would watch a lot of WWE content, and I don't even watch the WWE. I'm just more curious. But there's not people making a ton of content about these two things.
And then I got a curveball question for you. With all that we've talked about with like connected TV, and it's, people are obviously seeing what's happening. X just released, that they're doing the Twitter or the X TV app. Like, how do you think that plays into all of this? Like, what do you think the experience is like?
So you'll be able to go on your smart TV and there'll be an X app, and that will play all the videos that you see on X.
And I'm assuming you can kind of like scroll through Twitter as well, right?
I don't know who would ever scroll through Twitter on your TV. To be honest, like I would never scroll through Twitter on my TV and read tweets. I also don't think there's a ton of really good digital video content on Twitter. I know that they've done deals with Tucker Carlson, so he posts his show. I know there's other people that post shows. I would imagine it's going to be a lot of that. It's like, hey, Tucker Carlson's show is 30 minutes long and it's on X. Now it's on this connected TV, so you can watch it on your couch. But I can just go to YouTube and do that.
Yeah, right.
Like when I want to watch videos like that are on X, most of them are available on YouTube. So, I mean, let's see. I think that X needs to figure out how they incentivize creators to make video content and make video content that's native to the X platform, not just reposted on X that's already posted on YouTube. Well, hopefully this was helpful, guys. I'm going to try and talk about a lot more things like this, like things that interest me. I think the sports one probably requires a much deeper conversation about like, how do I think sports content evolves on YouTube and what does the creator ecosystem look like to take advantage of that? But hopefully you guys like this. I want to get back to doing like a little bit more long form videos like this, where I just get to talk about specific things that I have interest in. And then we'll have some like interesting guests probably bop in from not the
more
Kevin.
Interesting than me.
Not that Kevin is not interesting. And Kevin, you'll also be here. We'll put the guest right here.
Okay,
all right.
All right.
So we'll keep them. But like we'll have some creators bop in. We have people in the office all the time. I think it'd be interesting to get their takes on some of this stuff. So thank you guys. Thanks for paying attention.